You know, she was doing it way before you were born, maybe.
It became the first internet company to go public on the German stock exchange.
You said something that, of course, it caused emotion in me because you were emotional as well.
I went to school dirt poor. We were very poor without food. So I know what it means to be at the bottom of the pyramid.
I should be grateful to life and I should enjoy what I have and I should do the most.
The previous month, I had killed my credit card to pay my employees. What do I have to do in order for you to order? I really need this deal.
You said something super important, that is, it comes with a responsibility.
I had to hide my pregnancy. I just put on Bavarian clothes so that people thought I was getting fat.
It's the first time I've heard to do a PhD in philosophy to apply to a VC process.
As long as you can have access to the internet, you are blessed.
Dr. Mariana Bozesan, happy to have you here today. It's an honor to have you in this episode. So thanks a lot for coming to the Wayra offices.
It's a great pleasure to be here. It's an honor, actually, and I'm so thrilled to see young people like you,
Thank you.
living, a life of meaning and trying to make a difference in this extraordinary time that we live. So thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
That's a lovely intro from your side. Thank you. The first thing that we were discussing just right before start, I asked you a question, I would say it openly. It was like, would you be able to disclose the numbers? Because in your side, you have something that caught my attention and everyone's attention that got in, I guess, that is, you cannot not invest. And yes. I've seen similar claims. And what I love from you to explain, and we can start from there and then we go backwards, is a little bit more the numbers. Like, what does it mean you cannot not invest? Why? How do you get there? What's the data-driven VCs? There's so many topics. So you're going to talk today about numbers too, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
In the performance. That's great. That's great. Do you think it makes more sense for the audience that maybe if they don't know you, in case they don't, to start with AQAL? I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. AQAL.
AQAL. We could go into what it means.
Let's get to it. So what it means and what it means, the integral investment, etc. Can you please explain a little bit?
Yes, of course. The statement "you cannot not invest" means exactly that you participate in life, whether you invest, start a company, paint a painting, write a song. It's a holistic approach to life. You're part of the bigger life. We're so privileged to live on this little dot on this planet called Earth, we're around in a universe of billions and trillions of galaxies, and where there's life.
The pale blue dot.
Yes, exactly. And so it's only through our inability to understand the complexity of life that we separate ourselves from what we do and from others.
Yeah.
And so when we came up with the statement, is what actually my husband's idea. You cannot not invest. That's a direct reflection of that. So whatever you do, you have an impact. That's why the word impact investing is such a misnomer, because you always have an impact. If you don't pay attention, you have a negative impact because you use only the right arm and you cut yourself the left arm because you're right-handed, without noticing, actually, I need both arms. But this is what we do with the systems that we create in order to run economies and businesses and stuff. So it's only through this separation that we go away from a holistic understanding of who we really are. Mm-hmm. And artificial intelligence is bringing us back to this consciousness, to this, I'm going to Bewusstsein, that we are part of a bigger thing. And AI reflects who we are in a way that we don't like, because, it's a mirror. And so that's a wonderful way of representing or becoming aware. Oh my God, I'm missing this, I'm missing that, and the AI plays it. So we could go in all these directions, but in terms of integral investing, this is the philosophy behind it. And this is what AQAL stands for. All quadrants, all levels, all lines, all types, all of life, the holistic approach. And it's based on the integral theory by Ken Wilber.
Massive. And okay, then if I put myself in your shoes, then I think, okay, I have all of this to play with that is immense as life.
Yes.
How do I take it to a portfolio? How do I take it to a percentages? And should I invest in bonds and then go for lunch because it's part of life as well? How do you prepare your portfolio then to be able to cope with all of this?
That brilliant question, which is what we're hoping to do in terms of our contribution to the grand global challenges that we currently face as humanity. And of course, in order to invest in a holistic way and participate and make sure that we do have a future, which is not very sure. I'm a scientist as well. I'm also a member of the Club of Rome, who've been telling us for 50 years that we need to live within the planetary boundaries with what Earth provides to us. Mm-hmm. And of course, how do you address the grand global challenges, starting with climate change, with social polarization of the society and all of these aspects, and use your knowledge, whatever your abilities, your talents are in order to participate in a little tiny way. But if we all did that, then the planet will be better. But you have to be aware of what you're doing.
Yes, awareness is very important.
Exactly. And so, and it's a huge bridge that we decided to build in order to take the knowledge, the talents that we have, and the capital that we have created by being serial entrepreneurs into a direction that contributes to addressing the grand global challenges. And the beauty about this is that if you invest in an aware way, with the holistic perspective, then the bottom line is huge. And this is why we decided at some point, and it was actually about 10, 15 years ago when we decided, are we going to talk about money or not? Because people would rather talk about their sex interests and whatever they experience there rather than about money.
Especially in Europe, I would say, no?
Yes. And so, but that's so important because money in itself is useless. I mean, on a bare planet where there is no water, no food, no air to breathe, you can't eat dollars, right? But we all seem to run after those. So awareness, bringing in the awareness in. And so that's why using this attraction, dollars, to bring people into the field of, if you can actually make more if you take care of the planet, if you take care of the people, if you take care of yourself. Because we as individuals in our raison d'être, why we're here, need to be brought back into the picture. Because if you don't enjoy what you're doing and you're like a hungry ghost, running after money, you lose yourself in the process and there's no point.
Yeah, totally.
So I hope, a short question, but a long answer. So in terms of the money, the number that I love to share is for 30 years since we've started with this model of investing, we have achieved a constant IRR of 6.8 multiple.
Wow.
A multiple of our IRR is different in every single investment, but in terms of the multiple, the overall number, a constant 6.8 multiple.
And this is when you're referring 30 years ago, is that when you developed the Theta model, or is it before? Or is
the
is
Theta
it
model evolved over 30 years. Yes, the Theta model is the scientific model that we, maybe I should start with, my background, because I'm a computer scientist.
That makes sense now, yeah.
I started, I was born and raised in communist Romania, so we have a Latin background, and I love math. And because of my mother's heritage, we were lucky to be allowed by the German government to come to Germany. Otherwise, we would have starved in Romania. I went to school dirt poor. We were very poor, without food, and
wow.
It was. So I know what it means to be at the bottom of the pyramid, and then because of the Germans, beauty of spirit and soul. And, it drives me tears in my eyes. We were able to come to Germany when I was 16 years old. And then I could study math at the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology. We called it Universität Karlsruhe at the time. And I actually studied computer science, and I never really liked Pascal or Fortran and all these terrible languages until I came across artificial intelligence programming, object-oriented programming. And so I went, wow, yeah, you can actually program in a way you think, object-oriented and rule-based and so on. It's still challenging. It was at the time, when we had symbolics, artificial, AI and symbolics machines and symbolics computers. That was before, the network systems started, and so I then applied artificial intelligence in building expert systems for chip design. That's how I applied it. That's where I graduated in artificial intelligence in chip design.
What's
very
the
large
year?
scale integration. I was sent by the German government to Stanford University as an exchange student in 1984, which of course extended my graduation in Germany. The guy who named artificial intelligence, John McCarthy, wanted me to do my diploma thesis at Stanford, but the University Karlsruhe didn't allow me to because they said,
They were jealous.
No, they didn't want me to get a bad grade because nobody had done it before.
Okay.
Yeah, so they said, no, we're not allowing it, so you finish here your studies. Anyways, so that, but the reason why I'm telling you this is because then moving forward in the mid-90s, we saw Mosaic. It was, again, my husband who saw it first. I was at Oracle, I think it was an Oracle event. I used to work at Oracle Corporation. I was an executive there.
Wait, I want to stop you there for a
Yes.
minute, if you allow, because you said so many interesting things already that I don't want to let them go before going into
Yes,
Oracle
sure.
era.
Not Oracle. I was talking about Mosaic and how we brought the
Mosaic?
internet to Germany.
Well,
That
were
was the first.
were you part of Oracle as well?
Yes,
you
I
were
was.
part of Oracle
Yeah,
as well,
yeah,
right? Yeah. Okay. So first you said something. It is not strictly related with this type of episodes that we do of these interviews, but you said something that, of course, it caused emotion in me because you were emotional as well, and it's how, like, let's say the German government brought you in Germany and everything, and it's like it caught my eye, of course, the fact that you're still emotional about it. And why is it so emotional for you? Like, why do you still, years later, you still feel like that about that?
Oh, because I'm deeply grateful. I live in absolute gratitude for the many shoulders. I'm sorry. I'm emotional because this deep feeling of how the universe conspired to help me and help us all to really fulfill our dreams if we only know, what those are and why we're here for. I think being alive is a great gift. And with that comes responsibility. And so I was so blessed to be supported by extraordinary people who all, whatever they saw in me, all the professors at the University of Karlsruhe, all the people at Stanford, all the co-students who supported me and showed me the way, where I should apply, what I should be doing, how I should do a CV. I didn't even know what that meant, anyways. And then that guided me toward a life of meaning, a life where I could not only be happy, fulfilled, but also give back because I was so blessed. And I think if we only stop to acknowledge how blessed we really are, no matter, where you live. I mean, as long as you have a smartphone, you are blessed. As long as you can have access to the internet, you are blessed. How are you using this blessing, this privilege,
Yeah. I just loved this speech, and I knew it was going to be about this and about gratitude, or I imagine. And I think it's so necessary because I feel that we are full in social networks with these empty speeches that are similar but way different. So like when you hear it from your experience with your trajectory and what you've done, like, oh, this is actually true. I should be grateful to life and I should enjoy what I have and I should do the most, because you said something super important, that is, it comes with a responsibility.
Yes.
You have to take responsibility as well of this freedom that you have and this power. And I just wanted to pin it because I think it makes sense and it's super inspiring. So thanks for it.
Well, thank you for catching it. See, there are so many people who don't get it. They have a sense of entitlement, and which is good to a certain degree, but it has to be in balance.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing you mentioned as well that I try to point out sometimes is related to AI, which I love that you mentioned the year and that you did AI back then already, because I also had a friend who just recently last year sold his company that he built 15 years ago in AI. And I like the fact that now people talk about AI like random.
It didn't fall out of the sky in 2020.
Yes. You know, she was doing it way before you were born, maybe. You know? So it's like,
yeah.
So I just love that. And now just to emphasize the fact that AI existed way before it's going to be after, probably still. Okay, something changed in the model, something changed in the awareness of the people, but it didn't come from nowhere. It comes from people like you and others who were investigating on it for long years.
It's a collective achievement, AI couldn't have become what it is without the computer power and the data. So these are the two major aspects that.
How was it at the beginning? What was your impact when you saw it, or when you for the first time you listened to it and you were like, because it would be like a mix between machine learning, and what was it at the beginning? How was your impression?
There was no machine learning.
There was no machine learning either.
No. There were, 5 areas. That's how I learned it. It's natural language processing, vision, robotics, theoretical computer science, and the theory, and expert systems.
Okay.
So these are the 5 areas back then. That's how we defined it. There was no machine learning. Machine learning came much later. And so you kind of picked and chose what area. My girlfriend, she became a professor in theoretical computer science, and I picked expert systems because I wanted the application, and I loved integrated circuits, and I loved building those and using combining expert system tools. We had back then there were Lisp machines, Lisp being the programming language for Lisp processing, and they built computers, hardware, that would enable you to build easily expert systems. So there were like Texas Instruments, and Symbolics was a company back then. And I remember, I'll never forget, in 1983 when the International Joint Conference on Artificial Intelligence was at Karlsruhe. That's how I got in touch. And John McCarthy was there, and he was talking about AI and so on. And at the exhibition, I saw, such a system was the knowledge engineering environment key, done by IntelliCorp, and Tom Kaler, who was president at the time. I wanted to work for them, and I did eventually. And I used these systems and knowledge engineering environment to program, faster and in a way that made so much sense, object-oriented.
Okay. That's okay.
But because there were like 2 types of expert systems at the time, the rule-based and the object-oriented tools that also used rules. But rule-based was used for diagnosis. It was a very, simple way of doing, expert systems. So today, that's why yesterday I asked this woman, what about rules? Rules-based is in AI as well.
That's it.
Anyways.
That's it. Because just to dig a little bit deeper on these rules, because the way I imagine them from the outside is like, okay, so if, like a kind of a loop, if this, and this happens, then this, and this, and this, if, then, and then you keep going down the code, right? Is it the way it was like at the beginning when you knew about it, it was like a series of rules that just happen that will help me to code faster because I don't have to do it. And in an iterative way, the machine will do it alone. That was the beginning.
That was the very beginning, yeah. And it was how it, you would build diagnostic systems for, various, for a doctor, for instance, or in manufacturing, like how do you diagnose a certain thing? That's how it worked back then. But then when object-oriented tools came along, they integrated, because the most important thing is today, even with machine learning is different, but is how do you do knowledge acquisition? How do you bring the expertise from an expert into the system? That's the most important thing. Today is an issue. So now we have a lot of data, and so there are a lot of startups that try to help to structure that data in a meaningful way, so that you don't end up with the LLM, blabbermouth, right? So you still need a lot of, knowledge acquisition and the structuring of data is extremely important. So then the rules are part of the objects and the way you structure. I don't want to go into the details, but there are rules in there that connect the objects with one another to come to a meaningful response, because you want the system to support you in your life. So you ask a question and you get an answer. Yeah. So there are many ways. But the neural nets came along, which are a totally different way of creating, this world, which then accelerated everything in a totally different way.
And while you were doing this, you were in US, and that's how you arrived to Mosaic, and that's where we stopped. But I stopped you before. So that's how you arrived to Mosaic and Oracle back then, through this.
Oracle came 10 years later. I came back after my exchange program. I was a visiting scholar at the Stanford University. Came back to Germany and finished my studies here, and then I was hired by this IntelliCorp, this object-oriented tool. Product, and worked for IntelliCorp for a while, and then my career took off, and I was hired away by what back then was Digital Equipment Corporation. Nobody knows who they are. They were the second largest computer manufacturer in the world after IBM, and they failed to keep up. So they were later acquired by Compaq, who's not longer around, that was acquired by Hewlett Packard.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's a long way. But then the AI winter came.
Yep.
And so I worked in different areas. That's how I ended up then at Oracle Corporation.
Okay. And
I did networking for a while.
Yeah. And that's why, because I saw that you started investing, angel investing, even 1995 or around that era, that year. Was it related? How did you start? Why did you start to do angel investment? How did you came up to it? Because were you there? Were you here in Germany? Where were you? What happened?
What happened? Well, I worked for Digital Equipment Corporation in Paris. Was doing network computing was a beautiful job, and decided to get married. And my boyfriend at the time, he decided to get his MBA from Stanford. He was also an exchange student at Stanford. Now he's my husband. He's been for 30 years. And
congratulations.
He decided to get his MBA at Stanford because he liked it so much, and he wouldn't have gone to any other place. And so I quit my job in Paris and went to California. It was during the recession, 1992. And here comes again this belief, deeply ingrained belief that you are supported by people and the universe. If you really know where you're going, the universe makes room for you. And that happened to me. I ended up without a job, without a green card, didn't have anything, but I wanted to live in California. And so a friend of mine gave me Andy Bechtolsheim's phone number. I don't know, those of you who don't know him, he was the founder of Sun Microsystems. He's also...
Sun Microsystem, yeah.
Yeah. And I called him up, and he put me in touch with a bunch of people. And so within a month, I had 3 job offers and amazing salary and so on. So I was again supported by amazing people, although it was a recession. So don't let the environment or the statistics, stop you from doing what you are here to do or meant to be.
I can also tell that your CV looks a bit remarkable already by then, by 1992, because you were already probably an outstanding student, were a visiting student in Stanford. Your CV looks quite remarkable already. No?
At the time, I think so. Well, because I followed my interest, my heart.
Which is key.
Artificial intelligence was fun, and chip design was fun, and networking computing was fun, and I just did what I love to do, and I think that's important.
Yeah, I completely agree. 100%.
Just don't let other people derail you.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving forward to what you were saying, we then lived in Silicon Valley. My husband got his MBA. And we came across Mosaic.
Yep.
And he came one day to me and said, "Oh my God, I saw this thing," and we knew the internet, of course. Mm-hmm. And he saw the first browser.
Okay.
The interface on top of the internet, and we knew a new era was starting. And it was at the same time when Elon Musk was in the Valley doing his first startup that we started our own first startup, wanting to bring real estate listings online.
That was when Silicon Valley was really cool.
It was actually, Ed McCracken was the president at Silicon Valley.
I didn't know.
And not Silicon Graphics, I'm sorry, another Silicon Valley startup. And anyways, so never mind. So we saw Mosaic, and we knew now is the time. So I was working at Oracle trying to support, the family. Tom was a BCG, my husband, Tom Schultz, BCG consultant. He went half-time, and he started a company with a bunch of friends trying to bring real estate listings online, because we got, a lot of everybody wanted to be in Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And so
to
they
start
needed
there.
to do from everywhere around the world. So using the internet to make that possible was amazing. But we had 2 partners who came from the real estate area, and they didn't get the idea what it means to start a startup in Silicon Valley and really move fast. Wow. And get venture capital and get angel investing and really move fast. And so that was the first, and this is where this book comes in, the first experience as it relates to the importance of the team. Mm-hmm. Because ideas are a dime a dozen, but if you don't have the team, and the timing is, of course, but 80% of the risk comes from the team. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that kind of got confirmed over the decades since investing. So, and they were our friends, and then we decided, we don't want to risk our friendship in this startup. So we quit, and the company actually tunneled through the dot-com era without really making a dent. Still existed. We just sold it a couple of years ago.
Wow.
But they didn't, it could have become one of the first startup, million at the time dot-com great companies. But we came to Europe and said, we're going to bring internet, companies from, top-notch European companies and German companies onto the internet. Everyone is going to need that, right?
And you were right.
Yes. And so I got myself transferred to Europe through Oracle to still make sure that, the family was fed. And Tom started to, build internet presence, internet websites. Nobody had a website. So, and, we had, you cannot imagine. And so we looked at the curves, how the internet was evolving, because it was already exponential. You could see that it moved exponentially.
Yeah.
But
I can imagine.
We went to the, in the sales process, and he said, "Oh, but what is the internet? Who needs the internet? But that's what the telecom does here with telecom." So people didn't get it. So they didn't see why they needed an internet presence, because they didn't have an internet access.
Of course, yeah. You cannot blame them 30 years later, but it's like,
yeah,
what was there?
Which brought us to the second step.
Uh-huh.
I continued. I did technology transfer. I used application service to accelerate the building of internet presence online. And my husband started his own company. This is the answer to your question. How did I become an under? I quit my job at Oracle, and did helped Commerzbank, Shell, and all these big companies get an internet presence who were already aware. We need that.
As a freelance kind of model?
No, I started a company.
You started a company? With the company
It was actually started by my husband, but then he saw, oh my God, we need to have to start an internet service provider, which he did. So I became an angel investor. We went to Fool's Friends and Family and asked them, invest in this ISP. It was called Cybernet. There was Cybernet,
it's a very 90s name, I would say, no?
But it became the first internet company to go public on the German Stock Exchange.
That's a huge achievement.
Yes. So for us, it was back then a 75 multiple, which brings us to the 75 multiple, 75x. That was the first, or was it 83? Anyways, so it was a big number.
It was a nice number.
Yeah.
And you were mentioning you gotta feed the family. You were mentioning this.
Yes.
And it's a point that I think is worth to just tackling it just a bit.
It's just a little bit important.
Just a little bit important, because what do you mean, or who do you refer with when you say feed the family?
Well, support both of us, and abundance always comes in spades. It's like huge. I got pregnant. I was 38 years old, and we always wanted a child, but I couldn't get pregnant because I was a jet setter.
Actually, my next question was going to be, that's why I asked the previous question. I wanted to know this, how that impacted your life. But so please continue.
Yes, and... But in Romania, nobody told me that I was stupid because I was a woman. Everyone encouraged me. Math. Is if you like math, that's it. Just do. But in Germany, I was told in high school that maybe I'm asking too much just because my German was not up to par, and people, So, and I always fought against the system. In this case too. So, and I was told when I was pregnant, and I had to hide my pregnancy because I had a startup, and I was selling, people, whatever, it was technology transfer, how do you build this and how do you do consulting for building internet-based applications? And we were, I don't want to go into the details, but I just put on Bavarian clothes so that people thought I was getting fat, and instead of being pregnant, and
really big tables. You have the meetings and the table was up to your neck.
And so I needed to feed my family, and I remember I was so sick, and my mother, she was. I'm getting there, but just to tell the story here, I was so sick. It was before Christmas, and the previous month, I had killed my credit card to pay my employees. We didn't have the cash, So I went over the balance and paid my employees. I started a company at the same time in Romania because the resources weren't there. The programmers, nobody knew how to speak English. Nobody knew Lisp. Nobody knew object-oriented programming. It was amazing. So I went to Romania. I said, for one expense for one engineer in Germany that I didn't find, I went back to Romania, got myself, 20 or some students, sent them to America to learn about application servers and how to build this and that and so on. And Anderson Consulting at the time hired us to really develop those big applications for their big, large customers. And that's how we paid the bill. But I needed the license, they needed to pay me. And I said, they hadn't bought yet. And I said, what do I have to do? I was sick in bed with the flu before Christmas, didn't know where my salary for my employees was coming from. And my mother was with our son on her arms, trying to allow me to make the phone call. And she said, what? And she heard me ask this Anderson guy, what do I have to do in order for you to order? I really need this deal. And he sent me a fax within hours, and I got 32,000 marks at the time, was big money.
I'm relieved. I'm even relieved now. How many people were in the company back then?
Well, in Romania, there were about, between 20 and 25. In Germany, we were always, was like 5. But we did the consulting, so people would fly in, go to the customer. And the beauty about the Romanians is because of the Latin language, they could speak, German, French. And so our clients from around Europe would call in the German office thinking that that's a German, but the phone line went to Romania and they just answered in whatever language. So
yeah. Very interesting story. Wow.
But you haven't been an entrepreneur if you haven't paid your salary, your employees with,
Yeah, I've heard some sad stories about this, also happy stories. So, and that's how you got into investing.
And now the question about the baby and how I fed the family. So within, I remember being pregnant, and I was it was Pfingsten actually. It's just not my son is turning 27 around May 20th, this around time. And so I got, I think the son was born on a Tuesday morning. And I left the hospital on a Saturday, and on Monday went back to work. Of course, because everyone was dependent. So I had to build the infrastructure.
The classic maternity leave in Romania, it seems. 2 days. 1 day.
In Silicon Valley, actually, in America. That's the classical. But it was amazing because I built the infrastructure around. So this internet service provider was founded actually in Bavaria, on the Chiemsee Lake, where my parents live. We moved there, put an internet connection so that we could have the company. And so I was there with the infrastructure, my parents and the Romanians and all my work and so on. And so every hour and a half, I remember my parents would travel with me to the client side and would wait on the parking lot for me to go and feed the baby. Breastfeed.
Yeah.
And nobody knew. I said, I just need to make a few phone calls. Let's take a break. I would feed the baby. They were on. Nobody knew. I would come back, and that's how it worked. But you can make it happen. It's not easy. But again, people come in and they support you. You only need to holler. Get people, get the network to support you. Even in a country, like Germany, where women are supposed to be at home.
Yeah.
But it wasn't me.
Yeah.
For those who choose to do that, raise babies, like my mother, she would have had 6. She only had 1. That's perfect. But it's not me. I love my child. I would die for him. And he is a beautiful child. You can interview him one day, too, because he's one of the world's leading experts on AI application in video, movie production. But I couldn't be at home around the clock. I get bored of, to tears, when baby talk.
But but the way you frame it, I'm thinking as a man in this case, and I hate it to make a gender thing, but it's like in this case, if you are the woman, you have 3 times, 4 times, 5 times more difficulty to do the same thing because you have a physical attachment with the baby that you need to cover, as you were saying, having to breastfeed.
Yeah, and at night I couldn't sleep because he was a big boy and he would wake me up every hour and a half to feed. So I looked like my old grandmother, but see, I think, life is extraordinary. We are amazing beings. Humans are so resilient. We're so beautiful. We are. I mean, and we can make things happen that, in retrospect, like, how did I do that?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, how did you do it? Still,
but so many are doing it. It's just they're just not in front of a camera talking about it.
Yeah, true.
The majority do it.
Yeah.
And they don't talk about it. Yeah, those who talk are those who have time on their hands.
Yes, that's true.
Those who don't, just do it, and that's beautiful. That's the opportunity for us to save ourselves.
Yeah.
We can turn the systems around. And
the revolutions start in ourselves, I guess. Like from your perspective,
that's
you
where
start
it all
in
starts. It all starts here in yourself, in your heart.
Yeah. And trying to loop it back to where, so you start doing investment, you understand how venture capital functions basically, which in Europe back then, probably you're the first, one of the first that were doing that. How did that expand how did you start to, why did you build AQAL? How did you come from that situation where you're super stressed, running the company, ringing the NASDAQ, the DAX bell? How do you come from there to AQAL, and why? A person like you so focused on technology and getting things done, etc. Like, I would love to understand that process.
Yes. Well, that comes back to the holistic aspect of life.
Mm-hmm.
So remember, I grew up poor. We were dirt poor. My toes are like this because I didn't have the right shoes in time. My teeth are all broken because we didn't have the right nutrition. I, went to school hungry, and then we were lucky to be in Germany. And my parents are simple parents. My mother was a baker. My father was worked as a mechanic. And so we were in Germany. Oh my God, how wonderful. I mean, they gave us a bed to sleep in. We didn't know where we were coming. We thought, we're coming to freedom. Yes, but they gave us a bed. They helped us find a job. And so how do you turn that into, and I remember how my parents, after we arrived on Halloween Day from Romania, and my father, before Christmas, he got himself, he borrowed 1,000 mark at the time, bought a, Volkswagen Variant, where he could put food. And he drove back with my mother to his relatives, to those who had less, because we were coming from there, to bring them food so that they had food for Christmas. And this is philanthropy. Philanthropy means loving people. A lover of people is a philanthropist. Not, Gates and, yes, they are, but it's in your heart. It doesn't start in your pocket. So when we then eventually, after all of this, studying hard and working hard in Silicon Valley and IPO, we came, through the IPO, we were out of poverty overnight, right? Whatever that means.
Yeah.
We had a lot of money. And then, but what do you do with it? I mean, what is it? What is the meaning of life? How often are you going to celebrate, why are you here? What are you going to do with this? And so for us, the question started, so yes, on what you can see all these Wall Street people, like we did, who then begin to give money to philanthropy. During the day and I'm exaggerating now, I'm not saying that everyone in Wall Street, but in, stealing and lying just to make more. Yeah. And we've seen the prime time, crisis in real estate and all the financial crisis that we had. And then in the evening, you go to a fundraiser. And so that's, for us, that was schizophrenia.
Yeah, it is.
So we looked for a model to integrate.
Okay.
To integrate a system that is not working. And we see that. The crisis that we currently have everywhere is a direct reflection of the old systems that do not function properly. So just to give you an example so that you understand what I mean. And we talk all day, you and I, all day long to entrepreneurs. So when you become an entrepreneur, the first decision that you have to make in Germany and everywhere is, do I start a for-profit or a not-for-profit?
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly in there where the schizophrenia begins. Because the moment you start a for-profit, you have to deliver profit at the expense of everything else that is dear to you.
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
And nobody cares as long as the bottom line, meaning, increasing. And then we have the not-for-profit world, which is, but I am better because I am a not-for-profit. I care about society and da-da-da. But they have, most often than not an idea what it means to really be financially sustainable. Yes, they do make I've been there, done that. I also have a foundation and so on. But we need to unify these two in order to get rid of, the systems that we have created that are not sustainable. the planet doesn't wait for us to really get our act together. We're going to be forced.
Yes.
That's why we have all these ESG platforms and blah, 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 and the regulation that are trying to fix a system that is not sustainable. In itself, it's not. And that's where we looked for, and as a scientist, I'm a scientist, so I always have to have scientific data. I have to see what science says to these things. So is there a scientifically proven model that can integrate, when I invest, let's say I don't want to fight the system, but I want to support an entrepreneur whose heart is already there.
Yeah.
But has chosen, holistically to use a for-profit model to be successful. Mm-hmm. And this is where the Theta model was born.
I see.
It's taking me time to understand. Due diligence to see, first of all, you have to have the financial bottom line, all the traditional due diligence that every venture capitalist does, we do. But then you move to the planet, like grand global challenges. How are we going to, sustain ourselves on a limited, resource planet? And there's that's step 2 in our due diligence process of the Theta model. Step 3 is, how do you address it doesn't have to be a huge list of things that you're addressing in terms of sustainability and social impact and so on. But then the team, with whom are you implementing it? Do you have a team that will help you implement this grand vision, right? And then the fourth step is the individuals. And then we make the decision to invest or not. And I went back to school and got my PhD in philosophy and psychology. It's a combination, another 5 years, to really learn tools from Stanford, Harvard, and MIT that I can apply in my due diligence process.
It's the first time I've heard to do a PhD in philosophy to apply to a VC process. I love it. Okay, wow.
Yeah, and it's all in this. Because I was so mad at the Club of Rome that are on this side and not trying to force the system here, and it's not working. For 50 years, they've been saying the same thing without nobody. Oh, give me a break, right?
Yeah.
But you can there are better ways to integrate that, and that's why I said. I had this perception within the Club of Rome that they're allergic to technology, and I'm a technologist. I mean, how can we address the grand global challenges without technology? It's impossible. Money? Oh, money is bad. No, what you do with money is bad. Allergy to money. And business. Like, how do you run professionally something to achieve these goals that, by the way, we all want to achieve?
Yeah.
And so that's why I wrote the report to the Club of Rome. It's peer-reviewed and say, well, this is how we are going to implement to achieve the grand global challenges and the goals of the Club of Rome.
Look, I think this interview should be played in repeat, at least some parts, to many people, especially when they're creating a critical thinking. So let's say 18, 20 years or something, or even before. So what you just said about these differences between, let's call it the capitalist world and the hippie world, that then they hate each other. It's like, we are all in this together.
Yes.
And this is not a hippie thing that I'm saying. Is either we collaborate and we do it and make it everything in one thing, because, by the way, we all want to live in the best planet possible. As you said, the planet will not care. It can take 50 billion years, will become completely black, and will rebuild itself. It's human species what is at risk. And I just think it's so necessary, this speech. All over.
Yes, it's a matter of consciousness and the level of consciousness, which brings us to what AQAL stands for. Mm-hmm. AQAL stands for all quadrants. Basically, what does that mean? We all heard of the Platonic values, the true, the good, and the beautiful, which you cannot separate. This is what this is at the foundation of humanity. Mm-hmm. But over the evolution of humanity, we moved from one value system to the next that has taken over. For instance, Inquisition, was the result of the good taking over. So ethics and morals. but then they exaggerated. They told you what's good for you, and in the end, they all wanted to benefit from everybody else.
Yeah,
who
I'm from
wasn't.
Spain. I know Inquisition pretty well.
I know. I bet you do. Everyone does.
Yeah.
But then evolution took humanity to the next level. We got Galileo Galilei, and science took over. And now we're in the world where the truth dominates. And we're about to lose it, by the way. But science, right? But that was in reaction to the Inquisition, to the overdoing of the system, the previous system, right? So science took over, and which brought us all the amazing, modern medicine, space shuttle, rockets and stuff, which is and all the stuff that comes along with it, including destruction of the environment at the expense of money, right? So we're now at the next level where we see the beautiful environmental destruction is not beautiful. We lose our soul in the process and that's beauty. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So AQAL, Ken Wilber, the philosopher, and one of the smartest people on the planet, everyone will speak about Ken Wilber after he's dead, like we speak about Nietzsche today, brought that integration into this. So the integration of the true, the good, and the beautiful. So beautiful being, in this case, you as an individual, and what is beautiful to you, and the environment, the reflection of appreciation of life. So we integrate science, ethics and morals, and beauty. That's what it is. And if you really look at that and of course this is very abstract, but we have taken it into the application of investing.
Wow.
And so these are the tools that we use when we invest in Proxima Fusion, for instance. We're lucky enough that they wanted us, fusion reactors or quantum algorithms like Kipu Quantum and others. That's the process that we go through. That's how we bring it down.
And would you then limit it to certain startups, or is it something that you could extend beyond? Like, I'm going to say something that is nonsense, but if Google is doing a great job, I will buy 20 million shares of Google.
Yes. Well, that's a different asset class. So early stage investing is, the highest risk and, venture capital. And of course, we apply it in other asset classes where, we invest in stock and so on. Of course, you have to have a balanced portfolio in order to. Of course, there's always a given and a taking, and we don't live in an absolute world, and it's not either or, it's and.
Yeah.
It's always and it's a process. And, and you can apply it in every area. Of course, it's just a little more difficult. It's much easier to apply this process in two people with a PowerPoint and a dog, right? Yeah. But the foundation, and if you read the book, then you see that we're convinced that that's the future. And you see how more and more people bring coaching into corporations, leadership coaching, team coaching, all this diversity training. Yep. We have one of our sons. He is, I have many, many children, although we have only one physical son. His name is Mihai Streza. He started Wonder in Berlin, where he uses VR sets, to help train people to see diversity. And so it's another extraordinary application. So,
okay. Yeah. And could you walk us through a little bit the portfolio distribution? Then how's your portfolio look like? Is it 20% super risky investments that I think are startups, early stage? Then I go a little bit like, how do you structure the whole portfolio right now, more or less?
Oh, God, I'm not sure I have the numbers. But so first of all, we don't have a fund. My husband and I, we're investing our own money.
Okay.
And so it always makes a huge difference whether you're managing other people's money or whether you're directly connected to the outcome. So in terms of the distribution, I couldn't give you numbers, but the way we're both crazy entrepreneurs. And so we go high risk because on one hand, we told our son, you're not going to inherit from us, and you have to make your own life and live according to whatever it is that gives you joy, and you have to grow into it and make a contribution to the world and give back to society in the way that it's given to you also, and better. So that's why, we're not going to take any of that with us. So we invest in startups, help companies to, particularly young entrepreneurs, because there's so much hope. It's so beautiful to see these young people who have an idea and, want to make it happen, and to identify them and coach them and mentor them to success is just what gives us so much pleasure. But probably a large percentage of our portfolio is high risk.
Even more than 50%?
At times, probably.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really high risk.
Yeah.
And what are the stages that you normally love to invest in? Really early or?
Bleeding edge. Bleeding edge. Early.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you normally aim to take a percentage, or is that included in your way to structure your investments, or you don't need to aim at 10% early, or what kind of tickets do you normally do?
Well, it's anything between 25K to $500,000. We have built sustainable data centers, for instance, for Google in Hanau. And so that's real estate. That's, of course, it's a much bigger. So because for us the strategy is the most important. Mm-hmm. So the overarching strategy is for the next 10 to 15 years, and we call the investment Wende, because this is the foundation of how we should turn around the way we invest. And so the strategic direction is determined by how can we make sure that we go to net zero and below by 2035. This is the most important thing, and because science tells us, it's energy, provide energy, food, and transportation, mobility, and so on. So these are important. Then healthcare, because making sure that the population is healthy. The world population ensures also that. And economic empowerment of women, to make sure that we don't have too many children and those are well educated, so the resources are enough. So these are and it's all in this, but this is the strategic underpinning of how we invest in, how we made our decisions, always based on our own ability to understand. We don't invest in stuff that we do not understand in terms of technology.
Very Warren
because you're
Buffett.
not good.
Yep.
You're not good. You make mistakes, and we learned a lot from the past. Although we have such successful financial returns, we paid our dues, of course. And so, given the strategy that I just mentioned, we invest in deep tech, energy, and in a way, for instance, when we decided we also had a multifamily office. We tried to build a network of investors to invest with us. It's always a tricky question, like how it works, how the team works, and so on. So, but when it was, again, Tom who identified this technology where you can cool data centers with water instead of air. And so that brings the reduction in construction of 40. We know 40% of the CO2 emission comes from construction. So if you build data centers and they're all mushrooming, using a technology that reduces, energy usage is huge. That's why we did it. And so that was a bigger investment. So I think Anyways, again, short question, long answer, but that's extremely important, that the strategy and what we know to do well is key to our investments and how we. And in these cases, when we come across an idea that is really enticing and good, then we go into the management team, and of course, yeah, sometimes, yeah,
not as an advisor, but
starting the company, yeah.
Oh,
okay. So usually it works. I invest, and my husband is in the management team because we don't want to be in the same company, husband and wife. But that's how it works. And of course, the difference financially, difference between passive investments and active
totally
it's
activist
10 times. Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me a bit in different scale and with a different reasons of being. Bill Ackman, when he was investing and getting in the company, getting in the board, you have to do this, you have to do that. The scale is different, but it reminds me a bit with you and your husband getting in the company, in the management team. Wow. How many companies do you have already in your portfolio?
We have invested in many, over 30 years. I stopped counting at 50, but currently we have, I think, 12 or 14 active investments.
And you managed to be part, at least in some, like you do this full time.
Yeah.
Because otherwise there's no way that
Yes.
you can do anything else.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, we have support. We have, we have a lot of people that we work with and support, and we try to keep it, thin, but and we invest in teams that are amazing.
Yeah.
And even if they fail, it's not that important to us because we are so proud of, we invested in a good cause, holistically good.
Yeah.
For instance, we learned this entire trade in Silicon Valley, where we lived for on and off for 35 years. And so we invested together with it was called Angels Forum at the time in Palo Alto, where there were 25, 30, highly successful Silicon Valley serial entrepreneurs. And that's where we learned the trade, how to do it. And then the interior aspects, the Stanford, Harvard, and MIT tools came along with it. But I forgot my train of thought. I don't even know what I wanted to say, but
I would think in any way that is a very intelligent way also to do investments, because you can cope with the fact that you're not going to be always right 100% in an economic return wise. So you cope with it with the fact that it's okay.
Yeah, I remember what I wanted to say is there was one day when there were two pitches. One was a pitch from Southern California, a guy who wanted to turn bloody movies into bloody games. And our son was small at the time, and and the upside would have been billions, right? Mm-hmm. And at the same time, there was a doctor who developed a brain stent, a brain, what is it called? Ischemic, whatever. So you have a stent that you can clear the blood vessels going to the heart, but in the brain, the blood vessels are much thinner. So you have he developed a brain stent for the brain. And he was a serial entrepreneur, and it was highly risky enterprise. And but he was so motivated to really, because you only have about 4 hours time if you have a brain infarct. You only have 4 hours time to do something about it, so you don't die or are incapacitated for all your life, for the rest of your life. And we decided to invest in that with high risk, but something that we could be proud of, even if it failed. I totally understand. Versus this gaming stuff, which would have brought us a lot of money, but so this is the decision that we make. And by the way, this was a 16 multiple. Turned out to be. It was It's penumbra, and it saved our personal friends in Germany because Germany was open to testing before the FDA was.
Wow, even so.
Yeah, so that's the kind of
I'm getting to fully understand what it means.
Yeah.
I was. A lot of questions came to my mind, but I don't want to hold you forever because I think we've been already.
I don't want to bore the audience.
What?
With my stories.
Super interesting. No way. But I would ask you about the difference between public funding, private funding, but about the success stories, worst case or failure stories. But we can maybe leave that to a second interview if you allow me and if you please.
Anytime.
But I would want you to make a kind of not a prediction or a forecast, but what do you or how do you envision the future? What are the trends that you like? And let's just stay with that. I don't want to ask you 100 questions. How do you envision the future? What are the main trends that you see?
That's, of course, a very big question.
I know. I'm sorry for that already.
And as you would imagine, I'm a philosopher. As we've been thinking about this for a long time. And we all have the choice to get crazy about, the media, the polarization, the war possibilities, and so on. But I have chosen to really focus on what's good with life, not what's bad. Spend 20% on the problem and 80% on the solution. This is what I've decided to do. And I think if we all take that to heart, look at the problem, see it as it is, but don't make it worse. Right? Don't get lost. So that's why, and I need to tell you this, I've been meditating for 44 years, sitting on a cushion and, learning because going, what we see in life is just like the tip of the iceberg. We're much, much more than that. And who we are really is what we need to uncover in order to overcome the challenges that we have. And the answers come from going within and working with people, building a bridge between the head and the heart. And that's, of course, the longest way that you could ever build. But it's extremely important to come into a state. Your state determines your success. Your state on the inside determines the success on the outside. So if I'm in a bad condition, whether I physically suffer or emotionally and so on, then what I produce on the outside is not good. So I need to take care of, just like on the plane, you put yourself oxygen before you give it to your child. And I think we need to take that to heart. So I think this is the foundation of looking into the future, contributing to the future, doing whatever it is that we can do as individuals in order to, a little bit contribute, make the world a little bit better than we found it. And all the data shows that we're living in the most extraordinary time ever as human beings. So with all the wars and all the stuff that we experienced, we created something extraordinary, something amazing. You just have to acknowledge it and, remind yourself how beautiful it is and what a gift it is to be alive. And so with that foundation, what can we do? Now, we are human beings, we're not human doings, but at the end of the day, we need to pay our bills. So for us, it's extremely important for the next 10 to 15 years to focus on, in terms of investing, entrepreneurship, supporting people like you and entrepreneurs with what we can do to really transform our economic system and all the verticals, of industries, energy, to move toward sustainability, sustainable transport, sustainable mobility, sustainable food production, and so on, medicine, and so on. And so this is important. And science, again, shows that it is possible. And this is what we do. And if we all become aware of this amazing power that we have, we can turn it around. We can go to net zero in all of our industries, and we can even go below, because going to net zero is not enough. We need to sequester the CO2 that has already been emitted. But it is possible. It is feasible. And there are so many amazing people, like we've seen yesterday, and like the work that you're doing. And so if we pick and choose to really focus on these areas, energy, what can I do? In terms of providing sustainable energy, net zero, energy, in all the potential areas. You could develop a piece of software, piece of hardware, whatever. Contribute politically, be an activist, and so on. There are so many ways in which we can participate with our little talent that we have. transportation. So science shows us that with the technology that is available today, we can go 90% CO2 neutral in 10 years. It is possible. It's feasible today. It's not easy, and we need to do it. So that's what we're doing. If you're asking, so how I think about the future, that's it. And now we have all these amazing tools, artificial intelligence, quantum technology. I mean, if you decide to look at quantum algorithm and quantum encryption and quantum security and quantum communication, this is yet another thing that nobody looks at right now, but everyone looks on AI. But quantum everything is the future, right? And that's why I mentioned meditation, because quantum physics, quantum mechanics cannot be understood in a rational way. If you are rational, you kind of think,
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
Such a fascinating world.
So you have to go into a different state of consciousness, and then all of a sudden, just like having an idea in the shower, you understand. And now combine artificial intelligence with quantum technology, and this is the future, and apply them in these areas where we could, really contribute to turning the economies around. So this is my little summary, very complex, of course, of the future. I don't know whether that makes sense to you.
It does, and I love the way that you frame it, because it actually frames it with optimism and based on current thing that we're doing already, that it's like, guys, it's already here. We just have to take it and execute. We don't need to create anything else. It's there. Just let's do it. And I want to be part of that change.
Yeah, and capital is available. Talent is available. We need more political will, but, we're getting there too.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, thanks a lot, Mariana. It was an honor to have you here, really. And happy to have you around anytime. Thanks for coming.
It's a pleasure, an honor and a privilege. Thank you for your work.
Ciao, ciao.
Appreciate it.